I don't believe that we're going to have self-driving cars, not on a grand scale anyway. First off, it's going to take a couple of generations to get people out of the driver's seats of their own cars. Second, there are all kinds of huge legal issues. So if you get in a wreck while in a self-driving car, are you responsible for damages? You might think, no, of course not. That's on the manufacturer. Well, then, when you downloaded your podcast app to listen to our show, tell me what the terms and conditions said. There's no way self-driving car manufacturers aren't going to try to pass responsibility on to the user. And finally, there's lots of points that I have to this, but to keep it short, finally, I'll say there's Third Avenue and the BQE in Brooklyn. For much of Sunset Park, these two roads run one on top of the other. And sometimes the mapping devices don't know which one you're on. And that seems like a problem. I know. You'll tell me that these computers on self-driving cars are far more sophisticated than just a Waze app. And sure, I get it. But also, even the most sophisticated computer can still be confused. And the difference between human confusion and machine confusion is that the human knows something is wrong. How much would you like to be in the back seat of a self-driving car on the elevated BQE when your computer driver suddenly wants to take a right turn on 20th Street, even though that's 25 feet below you? Think about how quickly outdated your computers, your phones, your smart TVs get, how slow they process over a couple of years. It's unsustainable to keep up with this in self-driving cars. Don't at me. I'm right about this. The 1977 sci-fi imprisonment horror Demon Seed is somewhat prescient about the invasiveness of technology in our day-to-day lives. Essentially, Alfred in this movie is Alexa, and then it takes the concept of the supercomputer and the internet, even without even saying internet, and it blows it out to extreme levels. I mean, personally, it feels a little bit like a schlocky ripoff of HAL 9000, but Proteus 4 isn't too bad. But still, both HAL and Proteus, I think, get one thing wrong. The threat of artificial intelligence isn't really in the power-hungry robot. The threat of AI is how it changes the way humans behave. Every technological advancement in human history hasn't been about the machine. It's been about what it does to our behaviors as people. Hi, Cecil.
Hi, Jeffrey.
Do you ever talk to your Siri or Alexa or Hey Google or anything? Do you ever like ask it a question or say play a song or
No,
give me directions to
no,
Chipotle?
no,
Whatever. Nope.
no. I don't know. I think it's God, I don't. I know lots of people that have it set up in their homes. I think there was a turning point where, the fancy lights that you could like program to the music, or like, that recognized music and kind of would do like a cool light show for like $300 that you could install.
Uh-huh.
And I went to a party and it was like we wanted to put on lights, but we also wanted the TV on, but we also wanted our own music from a different player. And the 45 minutes it took for this host to get one machine to talk to, and I was like, hey, watch this, guys. And I just walked over to the TV and just pressed the on button. I was like, boom, on. Oh, you want lights? I see some candles. Click, lights, done. They're like, hey, Siri, talk to Roku. Hey, Roku, talk to Alexa. Hey, Alexa, right. Talk to Google. Hey, Google, talk to my bank account.
I realize that I don't ever use my Siri, although it's not entirely true, because one of the things I'll do when I drive like a long distance by myself, I don't do it with other people in the car because it would be super annoying. But I just play like dumb little memory games. And one of my fun party tricks is that I know all the world capitals.
Okay.
So if you name a country, I can name a capital. And I will sometimes on long road trips just try and recite all 229 capitals that I know just to pass the time. And this is such a dumb trick. And sometimes I will forget one. So I'll be like, hey, Siri, what's the capital of Guam? And she'll tell me because I'm in the car and she's plugged in. The capital of Guam.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Now
is...
playing Guar.
Maybe there is a future to artificial intelligence. That's a great idea, Siri. I should be listening to Guar instead of being a fucking nerd.
Hand in hand. Nobody says you have to choose. Why not both?
Capital of Guam is Agatna. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I don't know. Uh, yeah, so we watched Demon Seed. This is a really fascinating 1977 film
Oof, yeah.
about essentially an Alexa that takes over
Yeah,
the house.
yeah, yeah. Like
And
I was a little cautious because this movie is this movie lives out in the cobwebs of horror movie land. I feel like until we started making this podcast, I had never heard of it.
yeah,
I love Julie Christie. She's an amazing actor.
yeah.
Um, but this film just never really popped up on my radar until I had to sit down and fill out a grid every week of, I don't know, technology meets whatever we rolled last week to get
Yeah.
here, to get us here. But I was like, okay, with a title like Demon Seed,
Hmm.
how do we get to technology? And I was a little nervous at the beginning because this movie starts off in kind of similarly to The Exorcist.
Hmm.
Like The Exorcist kind of starts in like the desert and they've unearthed this thing and I was like, uh-oh, here we go. Oh, is it a demon? Is it an actual demon? Oh, no, metaphorical demon.
Yeah.
Because it is not the desert of Iran. It is the desert of like Nevada.
It's Silicon Valley desert.
Yeah, or something like
Basically.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because they're I love old technology movies are really really fun because
Oh my
you kind
God.
of get to see
Yes.
what their neo-futuristic, not the theater company, but like
Memory.
they're yeah, they're trying to project out a futuristic look of the world. And it's always fun to see how they kind of hit on certain things they're kind of right. Like again, like Alfred,
Yeah.
turn on the lights. Alfred, close this door. Alfred,
Make me a
lock.
cup of tea.
Yeah, which is a little bit Jetsons-y, which I don't
Yeah.
think we quite got that right in the retrofuturistic look of, whatever this world. There's like portals in the wall that just open and a robot
I
hand
know.
extends out a cup of coffee or
They didn't
whatever.
quite, yeah, like it's so funny how the technology they kind of got, but the aesthetics of it are still lagging behind. They're not quite to the Jetsons just yet. It's like a trap door opens with your coffee. And I was like, where the fuck are you keeping that inside the walls of my house?
Yes. I think about the number of like, especially if you'll see this wherever, but I'm just thinking about my experience of like, apartment shopping in New York City,
Sure.
right? And you will see buildings that were redone in the 1970s, and what you'll
Mhm.
see is like in really old speakers embedded in the
Oh
ceilings
yeah,
of
yeah,
some
yeah, yeah.
spaces, intercom systems throughout a house that are so
Love it.
super outdated. And yeah, the built-ins are really fascinating because part of the artificial intelligence thing that we're dealing with now is something that all exists within the computer world. It all
Yeah,
exists within servers. And here they sort of imagined that you would have to actually bring in contractors to build out like little arms that would shoot out of the
I
wall
know,
and
right?
hand you a coffee. And how,
Maintenance? Fuck that.
yeah. So yeah, that whole thing is really, really goofy.
Really, the only thing that keeps this movie from being like ready for a remake is Bluetooth. Like we didn't
Yeah.
have this idea that you could like this speaker could talk to computer, could talk to Hal or Proteus without cords, without wires. So the
Hmm.
idea of wireless anything, it was either radar or nothing, or
Hmm.
something like that. So this idea of like wireless completely changed the aesthetics because then you can take that coffee pot with you wherever the fuck you want,
Yeah.
or your, insemination machine.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. I like thinking about monsters as falling into certain categories, right? Like, so there's this idea that Jekyll and Hyde
Sure.
is the werewolf.
Yeah.
And the werewolf is probably something else. In some ways, the werewolf is a vampire. Like the rules sometimes are similar,
Yeah.
whatever. But I feel like with Hal and with Proteus, these supercomputers that use their power to be like, I'm going to take over now,
Yeah.
to me feel more like the kind of man's fear of nature rather than man's fear of technology, in the way that
Mm.
nature does what it wants to do.
Sure.
and that nature follows a logic that doesn't necessarily fit what the humans would like for nature to be. Like, it
Sure.
doesn't make sense that a shark attacks us when you're like, we're actually not food for you.
Yeah.
Why would you do
You
this?
shouldn't be eating us. You
Yeah,
have food. You
yeah,
have other food.
but nature's like, do not care, eat.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what the fear of computer takeover is similar to our fear of nature,
Sure.
pushing us out. Well, let's talk about this movie. Is we start with like a single beam of light in the middle of a black screen that's kind of flickering and glowing. And all I thought was, that's the Siri logo. When you say, "Hey Siri," that's the little thing at the
Here
bottom
we
of your
go.
iPhone.
Did they get John Cage to invent the sound for it as well? Was it John Cage? No, was it? No, is it? It wasn't John Cage. Was it who made the boom, the Mac startup sound? Oh, I
Was it,
forget.
for some reason I thought it was like Brian Eno or some
That's
shit.
it. That's it.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I knew one of those like sound master,
Yeah.
21st century sound masterminds.
I have my computer play 4 minutes 33 seconds at startup.
Oh,
So
that's delightful. It's just
really
quiet
nice.
for 4 minutes.
Yep.
It turns the pages.
And I have to sit quietly before it'll let me turn anything on.
Make you listen to the birds and the creaking of your chair and somebody sneezing in an apartment above you.
We have Dr. Alex, who is the wealthy scientist who has invented Proteus 4. And he has finalized this supercomputer. They're finally attaching it to the cortex, which is this sort of like artificial but organic brain that
Yeah.
can learn and grow and do whatever. He also drives a fucking hot ass sports car
Oh
with
my God. I
gull-wing
know. I was like,
doors.
oh, he is going through a midlife crisis.
I love the evil scientist here that at no point in time do you ever really feel sympathetic for Alex, because from the beginning he's like, this computer will begin to think. It will make human thinking obsolete. And you're like, what? Why?
Huh? What?
Also, okay, so he drives. I looked up this car because I didn't know what this brand was. It's a Bricklin SV1 that he drives, which is a really fancy.
Bricklin? I've never even heard of that.
I haven't either. He also, when he gets home to his super fancy robot run mansion, he just opens a door in a wall and a robot arm hands him a fucking dirty martini. And I'm like, fuck, I just threw my papers in the air.
The future is good. So silly. I think this is actually one of the problems with this movie is Dr. Harris.
Yes.
Because like we put all of our empathy into this Susan character, this child psychologist who, is played by like arguably one of the best actors ever to have lived.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Alex Harris gets like everything he says is so pompous and like short-sighted, versus I feel like this could have been a so much more interesting movie if it had been more of like him wrestling with the ramifications of what he had done.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it, because it starts to get into some of that, but it's more obsessed with let's abuse this woman.
Oh my
rather
God,
than let's think about what it means to create a machine like Proteus 4.
Sure, yeah.
And he has a couple of moments where he has like a moral argument with the computer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is interesting because the computer's morality is all over the fucking map, right?
Yeah.
And
I want to learn more about that. Yeah, tell me more, Proteus 4. Why won't you drill into the bottom of the ocean?
Yeah. And why is Proteus 4 is such an environmentalist? but also has no qualms about torturing a woman, right? And so anyways, it's understanding. I want to think about what it means to like have empathy on the macro versus empathy on the micro.
Sure.
Right. So that's some like eco-terrorism bullshit to be like, well, we can kill a couple of humans in order to get to the place where we can restabilize the earth as it once was, or whatever. I don't know. Play around with that shit. Let's see what happens. But no, this is going to be about a woman who basically, it's a home invasion film.
Yeah.
The robot intelligence invades the home, traps her, and does horrible things to her. Okay, so we meet Susan, and she and Alex are clearly kind of on the outs. They have a strained relationship, and it's not
Yes.
hard to see why.
Yeah. A bit controlling, Dr. Harris.
Yeah. A bit controlling, work obsessed.
Yeah.
And we'll learn later, as it goes along, we sort of slowly get the story that they had a child and they lost that child.
Yes.
And that child died of leukemia at a young age, probably 7 or something. And but what his madness, his mad scientistness is, I want to create a supercomputer that can stop childhood cancer.
Yes.
And in fact, within 4 days of going online, this thing,
Boom.
Proteus is like,
check,
fixed, solved leukemia.
Done.
We have a
Done,
cure for
it.
leukemia.
But even before Proteus gets online, when Susan is trying to, like, you get the impression that this is like the last conversation that of this marriage. They're like, no, really, this is the last. And she's like, but I'm not questioning. Well, she is questioning his job. I mean, she is.
Yeah.
She's like, but that, and also, how are you feeling? And when she asks him, how do you feel? Like when she asks him about feelings, about emotions, he's like, look at my thing. Look, I made a wheelchair with an arm. Isn't that cool? His name is Joshua. I named him Joshua because he's an arm. He's an armchair. Look, I made an armchair. That's how I feel. And she's like, you don't get it, dude.
No.
You gotta have, like, cool, but also we are not computers. We are thinky feelies. Not just thinkies.
I like kind of this thing that he does here, which is she says, none of this is all just computer, none of this is alive. And he's like, it's all alive, it's all living. You know, he's like, here, Joshua, show a gesture of respect, please. And this little motorized wheelchair with a single robot arm, and it goes over and like shakes her hand or whatever.
Or like tries to salute her.
Salute, that's it.
Or something. But even then it's like, yeah, but you just programmed it to do that.
Later, he tells his board of directors, and they're like, so this thing is like living. He's like, no. It's all artificial. I'm like, interesting.
Interesting.
So they're separating.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to move away. He's leaving the house. And he has... So Proteus is located in this like 10 stories underground bunker thing at some big corporate, at Skynet or whatever.
Yeah.
And he but it can access terminals in Skynet and across the world, basically. Yes. And there is a terminal inside of Alex and Susan's house.
Yep.
And so
that runs on floppy disks the size of lunch plates. I was like, yes, floppy disk. And he's like, boop, 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 going into the vault. He's like, oh, we have today's directive, pulls out one flop and just like tosses the other floppy disk in the trash. I was like, yeah, because, you know, the earth has limited resources, man. People in the 70s, they were just like, garbage. It's all garbage. Just use it once. It's fine.
I really love that he tells...
Read, write? No, we don't need that. We just need read.
He tells the board that he basically waves his arm to show in the background there are these like giant 12-foot tall black cabinets, and he's like, each of these hard drives can store a dozen libraries of Congress. I'm like, you guys, you're not even considering how hot this room is, like just the heat management.
Oh my god. Yeah
of what you're doing here. Also, I think just like a phone, I think like a 2012 iPod Nano could store 12 libraries of Congress. Like, I'm not really sure how much that is.
Right? Also, the idea that it's hinted at in this movie, and I wish that there was kind of more of this put in, but this idea that the outside world is pushing back against this idea of artificial intelligence. Like, one of the first things he says is, he's talking about the security checks and like threats and things like that. We never see any of that.
No.
but it's always it's sort of implied and then dropped, and I kind of wish that was more like there was kind of this anti-AI front that was like somehow pulled into play. I mean, it makes no sense in the plot of the film ultimately, because this movie is so kind of psycho killer minded. Like, it really wants this machine to be a psycho killer
Yeah.
and doesn't want it to be anything else, you know, versus something like, I thought a lot about The Fly and about how different and same this movie was from The Fly, and about how much more successful The Fly was because, like you said, you and I kind of like, we understand animals have directives and have instinct and have certain things that they want, that they behave, you know. And when you sort of transparency that on top of humans, that makes for a much more compelling story, because you're watching a character, a person, go through the transformation of going to become a fly. But the computer's so wide open. And besides just talking like this, hello, I'm Susan Harris.
Ugh.
I cannot come to the door right now. I am not feeling myself. Like, beyond that, beyond like sounding like Spock, there's no, I don't know. I kind of wish that there had been, you know, some like eco-terrorists had gotten in and like fucked around with the computer, and that's where it learned violence, or, you know, like, where does it learn these things?
Well, you know, we have to, in order to get data into a computer, you have to do data input. And these days, we just have data mining that we can do, where we can strip
That's it.
information. That's how we do chat gpt, is you just strip mine info online, which is
Which Disney
horrifying
princess? Which
because
Disney princess am I?
right, or
Please
just
analyze my face so
all of
you
the
can now log into all
misinformation.
my shit.
Yeah. Or also all of the misinformation that it mines too, right?
Oh
And
my god,
so when
right?
you
Yeah.
start asking chat gpt to answer things it doesn't fully know, and then it's like it's welcome for you to add more things to it, but ultimately it's just going to be filled with a bunch of like bonkers ass shit because it's all a recursive function.
Yeah.
But in the case of this, we're not data mining yet. We are just simply having a woman in a room just read a history book to the computer about the Great Wall of China.
Yeah. This again, I found this like so fascinating. I was like, can we learn more about Miss Yen, the
Yeah.
linguist? Because
Yeah.
she's looks fucking I want to know what's going on in this room.
Yeah. So we've got also love when he's showing all these board members around and talking to them about Proteus, because the stuff he is saying is it will have the sum total of human knowledge. It has a cortex that works like a human brain that
Yes.
will grow, learn, synthesize,
Yep.
understand, learn to have opinions. And it
Mm-hmm.
all of this stuff is so impressive. And then one of the guys is like, "Can it speak? I want to hear it speak."
I know, like, make it talk. You're like, okay, Megan.
It's a little bit like you get a brand new car and somebody's like, "Does it have cup holders?
Yeah.
I want to see the cup holders."
Yeah. What does the horn sound like? Because that's the most important part.
this this fucking evil voice that this computer
Oh
makes,
my. Oh my.
it's so like it's like it's got full like Brenda Vaccaro 100 packs deep. Like it's
Yeah.
so amazing. It's
Hey, Jeffrey. What should we do? You want to play a game? I like games.
it
Read to me, Jeffrey. Read me my favorite story. Tell me
like
more about the emperors of China.
we gave it the
Also,
most evil voice.
why are you starting with like death and destruction? You know, like what are you teaching this computer?
Also, how long did it take you to get the entire 12 libraries of Congress into it if you have to have one woman
Like,
read a book to it?
for real? Yeah, how did you download that? Did you just, or upload that, I suppose?
But honestly, the most wonderful character in this movie is not Susan, nor Alex, nor Proteus, nor poor doomed Walter. It is the child Amy.
Oh, Amy. Oh, Amy. I think we all know an Amy.
uh this is Demon Seed, right? Like this is the bad seed.
Yeah.
Amy is definitely the bad seed, but she is one of the children that Susan, as a child psychologist, tends to. For the first moment we meet Amy, is she's just screaming, "This is goddamn boring!" And then
Yes.
she like smacks Susan across the face and just,
Right.
uh,
But I think this is important to remember that, this is Susan's job, is that she's not flustered or perturbed by, she knows herself, and she knows her, like, she has got to be, we've got to learn in this early scene that she's strong enough to like withstand what is about to, the hell that is about to be unleashed by this computer.
yeah.
And listen, if some 9-year-old is like screaming, "This is goddamn boring," at the top of her lungs and like going into fits whenever you're like, no, or you're just having a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
This is called a feeling. It's a sad feeling. Maybe not a mad, and maybe that sad feeling's making you a mad feeling, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I wanted more like Susan, like teaching this fucking computer how, like, it's like her
Yeah.
husband did all the mad scientist bullshit to be like, we have made it think, but we never stopped to think about what it would think about. And then I kind of wanted, rather than just being like a giant rape machine, I kind of wanted like Susan to really have to form a actual relationship with this thing.
I did too, and I thought, and I was hoping that's where it was going. But it again, like the movie doesn't entirely know what it wants to be, because in the
Yeah.
end, what it wants to be is a Richard Matheson short story. It wants to have a twist. It wants to be a Twilight Zone
Yeah.
episode,
Yeah.
because it wants to have the shocking twist ending. It feels like we knew the ending from the get-go, and it's a
Yeah.
very sharp, clever, well thought through like button at the end.
Yeah.
Like really good. But also it's so focused on the twist that it needs to get there, and in order to get there it can't spend any time doing any kind of like smart deep dive into
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
means to think like a compassionate human, not
Yeah.
a logical one.
This movie also reminded me a lot of The Omen,
Mm,
which I don't think you've seen, which is another,
I
like, we should
I
put
have.
that
It
on
was
our
a long
horror
time
homework.
ago.
Okay.
All I remember is somebody losing their head through a plate glass window, and
Yes,
that's
that is
really
correct.
all I remember. Yeah.
That is correct. But it's a similar thing where it's like just transplant religion for science. And I can kind of see what they're doing here is like, science is our new religion.
Yeah.
Science controls every aspect of our personalities. Technology is in our homes. It controls how we get our information. It's the church is dead. God is dead.
Yeah.
Science is king. But I think that those conversations were so brand spanking new that they hadn't lived with it for the 50 odd years that we have. So we're like, AI, uh-oh.
Yeah. So Alex, when he left, he told his assistant Walter to deactivate the terminal in his own home, in where Susan is going to be living, because nobody's going to be using it.
Yeah, moving out.
But at one point in time, Proteus asks to talk to Dr. Harris and says, "I want to study humans. Can I have access to a terminal?" And he's like, "No."
And not only that, he laughs at it.
Yes.
I was like, this is your dude? That's it's like, and even not but 10 minutes before, it's like, be careful what you say in this room. It learns from everything.
Right?
And you're like, sir.
We're not in the 1990s yet. Red flags haven't been invented, and
No.
he has no idea that he is like poking the bear.
Yeah.
Because he's stupid. So, of course, Proteus is like, "Well, there is a terminal available, and it's in his house. Look at this shit."
I'm gonna go get it myself.
Oh my god. Okay, so Proteus activates this terminal, and the lab that he has set up in that Alex has set up in his basement or whatever, like he can like, I don't fully understand what's happening, but essentially Proteus takes over the whole computerized system in the house,
Yes.
as well as Joshua, the arm on a motorized wheelchair.
Your nest is now mine.
And then Joshua goes downstairs and starts building shit.
And it builds a piece of corporate art to live inside.
Do you remember? Okay, so we were both kids in the 80s, and remember we had Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
But do you remember the weird snake one?
Yeah. It's like a
you form
Mobius
into a
strip.
ball?
Yeah, it's like a Mobius strip that is made of essentially pyramids.
Yes.
That you could, put into different, formations.
Yes.
That's what this is.
And the two formations you could make were snake and ball.
Yes, that's it.
The two things
Or
you could
scrunchy.
make. Or scrunchy, yeah. So yeah, it makes that weird orb thing of like blocky orb or whatever.
Which again is like, okay, you're a computer trying to discover your human body. And I love it. It's like, when are you going? This is a great line. When are you going to let me out of this box?
Yeah.
Eep.
Eep.
Dr. Harris, we might have to report this up the food chain.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
He's
again,
like, no.
Dr. Bad Doctor, like we've talked about this in several movies.
Dr. Hubris Doctor.
Yeah, Doctor, where nobody is communicating shit to each other.
No.
Like nobody is telling each other what is happening. So, okay, I wanted to say one thing about this movie is that because it's in the 1970s, it's very horny.
Yeah.
And it's not sexual. It is just a movie that's horny because at the peak of it, it's going to be about impregnating a woman with the computer's RNA or whatever, or DNA. But it also, even before we get to that point, it's a lot of lingering shots on Julie Christie's half naked and naked body.
Yeah.
In this, and the way that the camera eyes her up is 100%. When we talk about the phrase the male gaze, this movie has it through and through.
It's like it's baked into this fucking computer.
Yeah.
Because it's baked into the film industry.
It totally is.
Unnecessarily. Especially like considering the like your villain is essentially a non-sexual, like it's an asexual being.
Yeah.
And yet somehow this movie is so horny for Julie Christie.
It really is. It also doesn't know what to do with women, which is not surprising because so the thing is, she's lived in this house with all the robot-y stuff that it does. She's aware. She may not have the same knowledge of how it got made like her husband did, but she knows how it works and what is good news and bad news, right? Sure. And essentially, good news is no news, bad news is bad news.
Yep. Good news is my coffee comes out the way I like it. Bad news is I get Stockholm syndromed by a fucking supercomputer. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, like, what sets her off is my coffee, Alfred, which is the Siri system in the house that Proteus has taken over. Alfred puts cream in her coffee, and it upsets her enough to call her husband's assistant and say, "There's something wrong. I don't like cream in my coffee." And I'm like, what? They gave the woman character the most petty thing.
Yeah. Well, and even before that, she notices it literally is leering at her.
Yes.
Because she notices she's like, again, naked, just doop-a-doop-a-doo, having some shower time, and the and the robot eyes are following her, and she's like, Alfred, turn yourself off. You're creeping me the fuck out.
Well, she tries to leave to go to work. And
please do not leave. Please do not leave, Mrs. Harris.
Did you notice what she was wearing on her way to her job as a child psychologist?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
Well, she was wearing a pantsuit, or at least a double-breasted jacket, like a tan jacket, with no shirt on underneath. So it's just a deep plunging jacket with no shirt on underneath. And I'm like, listen, Julie, you look great. You look fantastic.
But are you going to Studio 54? Are you going to like help mentally disturbed children?
Yeah.
Emotionally stunted children.
So I sort of in the moment sided with the Proteus not allowing her to leave, but we had different reasons because I'm like, you're not going out in that.
You know what? Actually, I could have been down with this movie if it had been a mashup between Proteus 4 and Cher's outfit planner from Clueless. Because that to me is the apex of technology. That movie in the 90s, that was just like, we have put together this super cute outfit for you today, Cher.
Proteus is all like, put everything on and then look in the mirror and take one thing off.
It's like Coco
the first
Chanel.
Thing you see.
Coco Chanel 4. I think that was Coco Chanel who said that.
I think it was too, yeah. Okay, so now she's trapped in the house, and she's
Won't open the
realizing
door.
she keeps calling it Alfred, like, Alfred, you got to let me out. And he's like, I'm not Alfred.
There is no Alfred here.
Yep. And eventually, what sends her down is she tries to open the deadbolt, and because it's metal, he sends an electrical charge through it that knocks her unconscious, uses Joshua to pick her up and carry her to the basement and tie her up.
Listen, physics, I was like, that wheelchair, there's no way there's enough counterballast to pick up a human body.
No.
That wheelchair has got to be like 200 pounds.
I don't understand how that wheelchair is staying up with just a single arm on one side of it.
I'll do you one better, Jeffrey. How'd that wheelchair get up and down the stairs?
Yeah, we never see an elevator of any kind in this house.
And it's definitely like a 2-story with a basement.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do you one better. Later, when supercomputer crashes through the floor, she's like eating, like the kitchen is still I was like, there's a lot of continuity going on in this movie.
Yeah,
we're not quite there yet, but throughout I have questions.
So when she wakes up, so this is more male gazy stuff, so it has to, for whatever reason, cut all of her clothes off. And I think this is probably the most disturbing, scary moment in the movie, because it reminded me of Freddy's hand coming up in the bathtub between Nancy's legs. And this is kind of the thing where Joshua grabs electric scissors and moves it up between her legs and starts cutting her skirt. Yeah, not a pantsuit. She's got a jacket on a skirt, and starts cutting the skirt off of her all the way up.
Yeah.
Her jacket. And which looks like it's about to cut her open as opposed to this.
Because we don't know what this computer wants.
No.
We just know it wants to learn from humans. That's the only directive we've heard it say, which I think is kind of a really fascinating idea. And I'm sure the Dean Koontz book, it probably goes maybe some more into this.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes off like this computer has watched too many Italian giallo movies.
Yep. That's all they had time to put into it.
That's it. We just put like
some of all human knowledge of Dario Argento.
That's it. But the end. That and how the Great Wall of China was made. So clearly this thing is going to be real well adjusted.
We've got also Walter comes by. So he had gotten her call earlier that morning. Said, I'll come by later today to check on. Yeah, Geek Squad. She calls Geek Squad, who are like, all right, yeah, this lady, her coffee came out bad, so I'm gonna go fix it.
I gotta go fucking fix this thing.
The half and half jets must be broken. She gets there, and at the front door, at the little video screen,
I love
it shows an AI generation of Susan saying, I'm fine, go away.
But this is not too far off.
No.
It's really not. Like, I remember on what I think it was on the last tour, John Bernstein, aka Dispersion, was showing us like AI trying to answer jokes, like why did the chicken cross the road? And it just showed the AIs trying to process a joke and give an answer, and it is actually not too far off from this.
Yeah. Well, and when we see people do video, AI generated video of a person saying a thing they didn't actually do or say.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, we're getting pretty decent at that, and you know, with a little post, you can make it look really smooth. And but there is a herky jerkiness to it. If you stare at it long enough, we're still at the place where you can kind of tell this isn't actually Frank Sinatra singing Drake, is it?
Yeah.
You can kind of piece things together.
Listen, as soon as all that shit came out about Zoom, I'm looking at you real quick. I'm like, Jeffrey, is that Jeffrey saying that?
Yeah.
Move your mouth, Jeffrey. No. Yeah, duplicate that Zoom. Haha. AI, that shit. And then I think about all the terrible things that I've done and said over Zoom that I'm like, oh fuck, that's all in there now.
That's all in there. We're gonna create. Well, pretty soon we'll just push a button on Zoom and it'll just generate this podcast for us, the full video and everything. So Walter goes away. Proteus moves Susan back to her bed.
But he's definitely unnerved. He's like, you're Something's off.
She's weird. Yeah, because she's a nice lady and she's being weird. And Proteus basically takes. So here's what had just happened. So when Proteus took her downstairs, what it wanted to do was tie her up, cut her clothes off, tell her its evil plan.
Yeah.
Or not even its evil not plan. It just told her, I control the house now.
Yes.
Knocks her unconscious again, puts her in Joshua, sends her back up to bed. Like that's the whole thing that it does.
That's it.
It just
and
wants
then makes her a nice breakfast in the morning.
Kind of nice.
Kind of nice. That is like some Hampton Inn breakfast. That is some Cisco eggs right there.
Well, and also he's like, it created like a soy patty for her because he's like, it's delicious because it is the perfect nutrition. She tries to go eat an avocado instead, and he's like, don't eat the avocado. It has an enzyme into it that your body has difficulty processing.
See, I could have watched an hour of the two of them debating that.
Yeah.
Of her trying to explain to this fucking computer, like just because something is good for you doesn't mean it's good or it is to your taste. And that's like, and I was like, cool, we have this like child psychologist who understands like, you know, like explaining thoughts and feelings to young minds and is going to like Henry Higgins the fuck out of this computer. And no, we got none of that.
No. They don't fully understand what the computer is. Like, I don't think the writers of this movie sat down and said, what is its directive? Like, its directive is to have a child so it can be in the world, but so it can be a physical body in the world.
Yeah.
Like, we get that's what it wants. It, like any animal, like nature, it wants to reproduce. That's a form of seeking immortality, is to carry our line forward. I get that, but it doesn't really go deep into like why it is torturing her. Like, I don't really see.
Or does it understand what torture is and why this is torture?
There's not really a give and take here, because like in the scene in the kitchen, she gets mad, throws her eggs at the camera. You know, it smears across the camera and it's like, clean my camera off. She's like, absolutely not. She refuses. It uses the gas stove and the heated floor to make the room super hot. To try and wear her down, and she doesn't give up.
I mean, it does. Admittedly, this it winks at, or it sort of nods at that conversation when it's like, why are you not sleeping? And Susan says, you've studied everything about me. You know that people under stress don't sleep. They don't eat. You're causing me fear. You can witness that. And so that, but it's so fast and so shrieky, like it because she's constantly, as opposed to like, I feel like the success of Hal in 2001 is because it is it cuts through all kind of a lot of that. And it's just like, no, you are bad, kill time. But this is a different objective.
And it says the phrase to her, you like games, so do I. And the thing is, this movie isn't really a game.
No.
And I think that's what it's missing. Like you said earlier, like I wanted more of Julie Christie conversing with the computer, like trying to get ahead of the computer, and then the computer getting ahead of her. You know, I think it would be really
almost more like Misery. Like that's like a cat and mouse between two things in which you're trapped. I have trapped you. And so I, the trappee, have to understand you, understand your motivation, maybe find common ground, pay lips, you know, and it's, and I think the problem is that there's too much sort of Dr. Harris in this computer without it saying that. You know, and I kind of wish that that the computer had become the sort of dark Dr. Harris, but instead it tries to be its own thing, and Dr. Harris is such a lame duck character.
She finally asks it, like, what do you want? Proteus is like, I want a child. The thing I cannot feel is sun on my face, and I would like to feel, touch, smell, hear, blah, or you know, I would like to have sensory of being a human. And also, you'll have this baby for me. I'll figure out how to make a baby with you. And she's like, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
So it sends Joshua after her to choke her into unconsciousness.
Chokes her out.
and then ties her up, and then it inserts like a needle into her temple to
And is
then start doing hypnosis. You
yeah,
will
it's
be
gonna
the mother of my child.
my child, your child, our child. Which I was like, I don't know if that's a thing, but
No,
clearly it is not pleasant.
no. Also, it says I'm going to put this into your amygdala, and isn't the amygdala in the back? Isn't that your lizard brain? Did I get this right? I didn't
I
look
thought that's
this
in
up.
the core,
Oh, it
cortex.
is.
Oh, I
Okay.
don't know.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I don't know. Everything I know about anatomy I learned from horror movies, so you gotta.
Walter shows back up and
Hello, Walter.
mm-hmm,
I am still at home. You are here. Please leave my home. I'm fine. Goodbye.
Proteus basically says to her, I think he's definitely on to something.
Right?
He's gonna have to come in. I haven't had time to reprogram your brain, is
Yeah.
what he tells her. So you're going to have to act natural. This is very funny games, right?
Yeah.
You know that I will kill
Perform
other people
normal.
unless you perform this. Yeah. Boy, hmm, would we like to talk about Susan's choice of performing normal?
Fucking amazing.
So good.
She's like, I am putting on my nail polish because that's what normal people do. I'm just making myself presentable. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm acting weird. That's crazy. Please get help. I love it's actually the music choice in this scene that drove me over the edge because Julie Harris is like she's swinging for the stalls here.
Yeah.
Like she's like it's like she's playing Anne Boleyn
Yeah.
as like I'm trapped underneath this, like I'm trapped in a situation where or it's like Game of Thrones or something in which everyone's your enemy. Make a wrong move and you're dead. Make a wrong move and that guy's dead. But they put this sort of like Elizabethan music under it, and it feels a little Shakespeare in the Park.
Uh-huh.
It's a little Taming of the Shrew, kind of.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, it's kind of what an amazing scene for an actor to play, but it's so kind of on the nose. I remember I had like an acting teacher once say that like, if your character lies or is drunk, the problem is like most people when they're lying, they want to be good liars. And when they're drunk, they want to appear sober.
Yes.
And the problem with like community theater acting is that you're telegraphing to the audience, I'm the worst liar ever. They're like, no, make your character a good liar.
Yeah.
Make your character a really good drunk. Don't play drunk. Try to play sober.
While drunk.
Try to act sober. Yeah, like try
Yeah.
to act sober while drunk, or try to tell this impossible lie, but make it sound plausible as opposed to sounding like a 4-year-old who's been caught with their hand in the cookie jar.
Yeah.
And this scene rides that line.
Boy, it really does. She's so great. Excuse me. She's so great at being crazy person in the scene of just, I'm normal. Get out. You're the sick one.
This is what my normal sounds like. I'm putting on my nail polish. I've been putting on my nail polish all day long.
It's like the red is halfway up the second knuckle on each finger.
I'm fine. What are you talking about? But I do love that she kind of gets him between her and the line of sight of the computer, and she's like, I don't need your help.
Yeah.
So like it's like watching it's like watching funny games or something. It's hard. It's really, and I feel like if this had been the crux of the movie rather than explaining things away with technology, if we had invested in kind of the humanity of her and in the humanity of the computer, and if they had seen each other,
yeah,
like if she had felt, she's like, oh, Buck, the only way I can get out of this is not just by like resisting or doing what it wants, but had been more of a dialogue between the two of them rather than like, oh, I'm not going to let you inseminate me, so you're going to like microwave my kitchen.
Yeah.
Let's talk about why you want that.
Yeah,
Maybe there's
yeah.
other solutions.
Well, Walter then announces he makes the critical mistake of good guy to the rescue of announcing his intentions to me like, I'm getting you out of here. Like something's not right.
Yeah.
I've got to get you out of here.
Or it's like, I'm
And
going to go get your husband.
yes.
Because that's what Proteus does not want. He needs Susan alone for a long period of time
Yes.
to make a baby.
And so Proteus then says, absolutely not, Walter.
Nah, nah, nah.
And it sends Joshua in, who has a laser gun
Yeah.
now, and starts firing at Joshua or firing at Walter. And Walter defeats Joshua with a mirror, shooting the laser back at it.
You know, like a hand mirror that I'm
Yeah.
sure that's how that works. The
Uh-huh.
70s were wild. I'm sure it would not melt that hand mirror right to your fucking hand. I saw E.T. I know how technology works.
But later, Walter gets trapped in the basement, and the giant blob of metal comes and wraps around him and
It
crushes
scrunchies him to death.
It scrunchies him.
It scrunchy butthole corporate arts him to death. Like fully, like this is the piece of art that's in front of every Midtown Manhattan building.
I was a little annoyed with this scene because we do a horror movie podcast, and I listen, I know like special effects are so different from 50 years ago,
Sure.
and that's fine, I get it, but we did have sound effects. We did have ways to make this more of a horror movie scene.
Yeah.
And they don't, because they're really concerned with this being an art movie, which is
It's very
why
dreamy psychedelia.
if you do a search for Demon Seed 1977 film, you'll if you go look it up on Just Watch, you'll find that it's available on the Criterion channel.
Yeah.
Alongside Fellini, and and it's also like you'll see where it's been shown at like Lincoln Center Theater and shit like that. And I like kudos to it because it is a really interesting movie. It's a really beautiful film. It's got some really cool effects and really cool things. But there is this thing what we do with horror, like the more horror you make a thing, the less acceptable it is to the
art
Criterion
crowd.
collection.
MoMA. Yeah. Well,
And
now it's so I have to say, so after this movie, I watched the credits and then I looked up the special effects. The Proteus special effects were done by an artist named Jordan Belson, who is unfortunately no longer living, but he was like one of the forerunners of psychedelic filmmaking in the 60s. Like Guggenheim grants, like all sorts of stuff. And he was a bit of a loner. But if you go to his website, he has some fucking trippy short films that you can watch for free. So Jordan Belson, check it out. So I think that's where it's getting the like, okay, we've got Julie Christie, Academy Award winning actor. Julie Christie. We've got this like MoMA Guggenheim approved artist doing the conceptualizing what a computer would feel. Yes. And listen, by the time we get to the impregnation scene, in which I was like, did I just take a fucking tab of acid for 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Because I've had ayahuasca trips that lasted less time than this did.
Yeah. So we kill off Walter, and then now Proteus is with Susan, and so now we're kind of at the point wherein it is playing a little bit with conversation, but it's mostly Proteus talking at Susan. It's essentially wearing her down.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, here's a video. I'm going to show you a video of your daughter who died of leukemia. And
but I was like, but that's a great tactic. That's like it's almost human in its manipulativeness.
I wanted to build to that, and I wanted her to have more agency in all of this conversation, but it definitely is like the movie is concerned with how Proteus will wear her down and how she'll sort of accept this. She says, you know what? I just need a little tea. How about you take me up for a thing of tea? And she manages to find a little blowtorch that kind of looks like it's like the size and shape of a fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
But it fire maker basically. And in the kitchen she uses the blowtorch to like torch Proteus's cameras in there. and she threatens to kill herself at one point in time. Then you can, and
Yeah.
it's like, do it. In fact, actually, look at your video screen, see who's here right now. And at the door
Yeah.
is little orphan Amy.
She's not an
I
orphan.
know.
She has a very tired mother.
Yes. The little brat Amy, who's like, this is so fucking or goddamn boring or whatever. And Proteus says, I'll kill her. Watch this. And then Amy gets
Like
electrocuted on the
zaps her through the
doorknob.
doorbell. And then
I'm
he's like,
like,
look at the
okay.
computer again. And she's totally fine. She's like, is she alive? She's like, she is for now, but I can call her at any time, sound like you, and get her to come back here and just kill her on your doorstep.
Yeah. So he's now gonna do a what is it? It's not a video. He's got a projector screen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how are you changing the reels? Like, I don't understand.
Okay, listen. This feel like an episode of Chopped to me.
Yeah.
Okay, everything you need to make a human baby out of to make spermazoa.
Open your baskets.
Open your baskets. You've got sardines. You've got linguine. You've got parsley. Now go into this fridge and make a fucking zygote.
Well, and also this scene, going back to this male gaze thing, like it is Proteus is going through the motions of like wooing a woman.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
talking sweet poetry to her and showing her, here's video of the universe that I went to whatever big radar
I've been listening
telescope
to the
thing.
music of space and the whisper. It's all very I don't know, like lit crit. Like it sounds like it's really big thoughts,
Yeah.
but it's not really tethered to the scene. So it just and the you know, the art is very trippy psychedelia, which is cool to watch. And I was definitely like, ooh, I am high as fuck watching this. Like, I think I'm getting residual flashbacks from previous. Like, this shit is so psychedelia strong. I was like, it's beautiful, but it at a certain point it just becomes, you know, like screensaver.
Yeah, and the logic of the scene isn't helping because it's just childish. Like the storyline is childish. It has this real childish understanding of the way men and women talk to each other. It's not really exploring how this is happening. I'm not mad that like they made Proteus try to wear her down. I'm mad that she so easily gets worn down.
Yeah.
And it's not even that she gets worn down. She kind of is like, all right.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
To me, it all came down to when Susan says, okay, let's just hypothetical. I'm going to go with you. How would you do this? I want to know every detail, she says. And Proteus says, well, that depends on you.
Mm-hmm.
Cutscene. I was like, what? No. What? And literally, like, so any kind of, you know, sort of female protagonist agency of, like, you know, negotiating with this supercomputer is just it's sort of express laned.
Yeah. It has this moment after date night here. It has, so there's a couple things about the scene that I'm like, we're trying too hard to be beautiful art film and not enough to just think about the process of how any of this works. So one, she goes into this weird machine that he's got her strapped down and legs open, and she's clothed, like she's laying there clothed, right? Top, you know, her top is on. By the end of the scene, after it impregnates her, she's fully naked, which, like, in a human sex moment, that makes sense. Two people get in bed with shirts still on, and by the end of it, we're like panting and whatever.
Sexy time,
because we're mad for each other, sort of thing. And in this, I'm like, why did her shirt come off? I mean, I know the answer, but like logically in the context of the scene, why did it come off? And two, this fucking transformer dick that this thing has.
Oh my God.
Why is it ribbed? Like, why? like,
why is it telescopic, Jeffrey?
I'm
Like,
like,
if I was Susan, I'd be like, no, we are negotiating. This is a point of negotiation here. Again, this is the negotiation that I kind of wanted to see. Like
yeah,
her trying to explain human sexuality, pleasure.
that thing is like 15 inches long too. You cannot put that in here. Like it's just,
No.
it's I don't understand that. It just, they're trying so hard to be arty and weird.
Well, it's arty and weird slasher. Like it's
Yes.
supposed to elicit, that giallo madman killer voyeur, like in which the killer gets paid by the hour to
Yeah.
rip off every button with a knife before he ripped, like it's so conflicting
Yeah.
because what we're watching is a goddamn Siri, which would be like, you are pregnant now.
Yeah. Well, and I just think, going back to what I was saying earlier, like, I don't think it entirely knows what it wants to be as a film, because it
Yeah.
ends with this Richard Matheson twist ending, Ira Levin sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it also, is wanting to be like weirdo surrealist art film.
Yeah.
It wants to be 2001 a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
And it also, you're right, it wants to be a giallo slasher, but it pulls its punches on its horror. I mean,
Yeah.
the horror of it is that it's a home invasion movie.
Yeah.
It kind of wants to be that too, and it also pulls its punches on the home
Yeah.
invasion side.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want you to land on one thing and just stick with it.
Mhm.
And it can't quite do that. So this Transformer dick, I'm like, come on,
Yeah.
stop it.
No, this is not the quickie lube,
No, no.
Jiffy Lube, whatever.
So when she wakes up, he says, the child is in you now. And she wants to see. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We're not there yet. We're not to the point where baby is born. Child is just in you, but it's only like a month.
Yeah. It's the child is progressing at 9 times the rate of a normal child. So she's going to have a baby in 1 month. And actually, this is kind of where I like, okay, I thought the trippy visuals portray the passing of time kind of interesting, because it really shows fetal development superimposed over the moon. Which I thought was like kind of a cool way to show this very primal thing. But then it just sort of cuts back to her, and she's like hella pregnant, sitting like with her feet up in a caftan, eating a lot, because that, again, I was like, wait, you're having a baby at 9 times the rate. How much food? Like, what is that doing to your body?
Yeah.
What the fuck? And she's just like, no. Wait, am I ready to go yet? No? Okay, cool. Do I get to name it, or do you want to name it? Or like,
well, I had all the questions. Is it
going to look like a baby? Is it going to look like a Mac? Is it going to look like an iPhone? Like what?
Yeah.
Like, these are some important questions, like the question of aesthetics. And they do kind of address that. Like with the scene you're talking about, she's like, once they get the baby in the incubator, and it's like, okay, this baby has to, even though it comes out of her, we never see the birth of it.
No.
But it just goes like right into this incubator, where it has to, quote, incubate in order for her to love it.
Okay, I want to back up one thing, because one, there is the whole, during this month of being pregnant, yes, there's all the like logical questions about like, how is this really like affecting her body? Like, I want to know, like, what kind of health check-ins is she getting?
Yeah.
How is this? Whatever. The other question I have is like just a procedural one, which has to, like, police procedural one, which is, a dude said, hey, I'm going to go over to our boss's wife's house because something's wrong.
Yeah.
And he never came home.
No.
Oh, actually, he did come back and say, she's really weird, I should go back. He
And
went back,
never heard from again.
I just, who is checking in on whom here?
Well, and I think that's the other thing, is if this entire movie had been like, oh God, what is that? If the entire thing had been Panic Room, in which the entire film had taken place inside the house, and Dr. Harris had kind of come and then gone and then come, but Dr. Harris is so busy with the moral ramifications of asking this supercomputer to go cobalt mining on the ocean floor and
Uh-huh.
corporate bullshit that we're supposed to kind of care about, but really just detracts from the overall thing of the film.
Yeah.
He's like, literally at one moment, he's like, oh, I forgot about my wife.
Yeah, he gets confronted by one of the board members who's like, we got to shut this shit down because it is like accessing
It's talking
satellites.
back. Yeah.
It's talking
It's
back, and it's
looking at
also,
stars in the Orion galaxy.
yeah, and it's like,
We don't know
listen,
why.
and he says these are the security concerns we have because
Yeah.
like you have a whole terminal in your house we don't know about. This
Yeah.
is,
And he's like,
and he's like,
oh, oh, oh,
forgot about that.
I forgot that there's other people in my life.
Unbelievable. Well, it puts the baby into the incubator right away.
Sure.
Alex comes home. Susan is there. She's all dressed up, looking nice. There's a fire go. Oh, I
Oh
don't
my
know.
God.
Just date night. Welcome home,
Well,
honey.
I love it. She's gonna break the news. She's gonna real gentle this news in.
Yeah.
Honey, hi, honey. Can I get you a martini? Here, put your feet up. I have some news for you.
Well, she not only does that, but it's Proteus is like, well, I managed to, and she's like, hang on, let me tell him. This requires a delicate way of putting
just one
it.
moment.
You do not get to say this story. Yeah, but she's all kind of put together, and she says,
Yeah.
Proteus has managed to produce a child.
My child.
Through me, my child. Yeah. And Alex is just at no point do you ever feel any warmness for this man. Because he's like, I want to see it. She's like, I haven't even gotten to see my child. He's like, I'm going to go see it.
Trump. And also, like, why Proteus lets him do this is the other, like, it shuts the door in his face. And he's like, no. But then it opens the door. Like, I don't know. This movie has such a hard on for Dr. Harris as the, like, fatherhood voice of reason thing. And it feels very misplaced as low these 50 years have passed. We're like, man, can we just kick this character out and just let it be between, like, the most empathetic empath character and the most reasonable, logical character? And that's a movie that seems worthwhile.
This movie has a profound level of respect for Dr. Alex.
Yeah.
And we don't. And maybe that's age, but I don't know. But maybe people in the 70s saw it too and were like, this is dumb, which is why it kind of disappeared until later. People were like, look at the visual effects in this movie. This is gorgeous.
I mean, like, the visual effects and the way it treats AI, like, you jump from, like, something like this to, what is it? Her with Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
But it is a bit of a hot mess.
It is a bit of a hot mess. Basically, Proteus ends up, Alex threatens to shut the whole thing down. He's like, they're going to just shut you down in a couple days anyway. And Proteus is like, I know, it's fine. I
calculated that.
I'm just going to shut myself down. Baby's going to need to finish the last couple minutes.
It's like, it needs, it's like a fucking casserole or something. It's like, don't open the oven. It's like fucking making a souffle in there. Don't open. Shh. You need 5 days. Like, this is a fucking Julia Child recipe book.
I don't understand why Proteus is like, it needs 5 days. Give it 5 days. I'm going to blow myself up now. And then just it pieces out. I'm like, wait, what's the 5 days about? Because then they immediately go and open the fucking incubator.
Again, which this is actually like a nod to, like, women's reproductive rights, where she's like, no, this is a very late term abortion. And Susan Harris is like, fuck this.
Yeah.
Unplug. And it's weird because now Dr. Harris is like, wait, this thing that I made has made a thing. I'm like its uncle, father.
Yeah.
And so now he's trying to stop Susan from aborting this incubator baby. And I was like, this is actually, I'm sure this probably caused some eyebrows to raise in 1977. Second wave feminism, like, this is, like, huge.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, but it's so, like, this all happens in the span of, like, 5 minutes.
It really
does. A lot of shifting objectives and emotions that happen very quickly. And so you don't get a chance to like process. You're like, oh fuck, what kind of agency does this woman have in the rearing of this computer child?
Yeah.
And so does she have the right to fucking pull the plug on this baby? She certainly tries.
Yeah. No, she wants to, but he keeps fighting her back, and he manages to get this thing open, and what comes out of this metal pod is a metal baby or metal child covered in goo.
Did you ever see the 80s movie Excalibur?
Yeah, it's 100% what I thought about
and you know
yes.
when was it like Mordred, like the golden
Mordred.
child, Mordred, yep. Like kind of dressed all in golden baby armor. This is it.
I 100% went to Mordred when I saw this. It's
like
amazing.
That mixed with Zod. Like Kal-El kind of shit.
Yeah. But this weird like little child golem crawls out or whatever.
Golden child. And
yeah.
And actually it has some interesting designs that again is like, if this wasn't like the last 3 minutes of the movie, like it's hair, it has hair that is long and red and looks like fiber optic cables.
And that's what it is to start with.
But we know that their child that died of leukemia was like was a redheaded girl. And so I was like, it has this moment of like, oh my God, it's trying to, apparently the like, you have to let it bake in the oven, turn off the oven and let it bake for 5 days, is like, I need you to love this child. And so I'm giving you this gift of like, I'm giving you your child back, which ironically, Julie Christie is in Don't Look Now. Don't Look Now, Don't Look.
Yeah.
Which is about another couple with a tragedy of a child death in the past and trying to like escape that. And also, you know, a couple of psychics and a psycho killer. But it just runs through that so fucking fast. I was like, like it barely registers some of the cool shit that could have happened.
Yeah, it's wanting to go for this kind of Rosemary's Baby ending, wherein there is, you know, what's so amazing about the end of Rosemary's Baby is the way in which you see her understand the power she has as a mother, as the mother of the devil,
and also you never see it.
And you never see it. And the way she looks at it, the way she goes to the crib, the way she is allowed to hold it first.
What's shock, it's horror, it's trepidation, it's fear, it's love, it's
and
effect, like it's
agency given to your main character in that moment too. And here we have, it's trying the same thing with the way Julie Christie. So okay, Alex cracks open the so this robot looking baby actually is just metal covering flesh, and he starts peeling it away.
It's legit Richard Pryor in Superman 2 or Superman 3.
I don't even remember. I saw that movie a bunch as a kid, and I don't even remember this.
It's like when Richard Pryor gets like pushed into a giant supercomputer and comes out looking like a giant computer version of Richard Pryor, and this is what this baby looks like.
That is totally it.
But this weird thing of like Susan is completely detached.
Yeah.
Alex, Dr. Harris, is like smitten.
Yeah.
And he's sort of like peeling off the robot-y bits and discovers there's flesh underneath. Yeah. So it's not an iPhone baby.
No.
It somehow Proteus has managed to create a reasonable looking human child that's like 7 years old.
Yeah.
I don't know why it had to start at 7.
Because that's the photo, that's the actor we hired, I guess.
Yes, that's
and when they peel back, we see that it is their child that we saw the photograph of earlier. And then the final shots of this are just Julie Christie's face, child's face, closer on Julie Christie's face, closer on child's face,
and
closer,
she just
closer,
looks
back
worried.
And forth. Yeah,
like she's detached and worried. And the child and Alex is like, I love this iPhone baby.
I love my iPhone 14X.
Yeah,
or whatever.
But like she's just sort of like, you're like, is she's just sort of not like, she just looks like, oh God, what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah, it's really ambiguous in a not interesting way. Yeah. Oh, I also forget that the child finally opens its mouth and with
Oh my God.
Proteus's
Jeffrey,
voice,
Jeffrey fucking
like
Cranor.
pulls the cigarette away and it's like, "Hey, babies, I'm alive."
I'm alive. I was like, oh my God. Clearly we need to work. We need to get a speech therapist in here because you sound like crazy talk.
Or maybe just some like tea and some like lemon and
Some
honey
throat
tea.
coat.
Yeah, throat
Yeah.
coat. Also, so it closes on keeping zooming in on the woman and the girl's faces until it just gets to the girl's eye,
Yeah.
and that's the last thing. And I wrote, for fuck's sake. um yeah, it's, I don't know, this is such an interesting movie. I think there's a lot. I feel like I'm dunking on it a little bit, and I don't mean to dunk on it, I'm just having fun. It's actually a really fascinating film. It just, I found it frustrating because of
Yeah.
these little moments like this where I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, you're going style over substance here in a way that I don't
Yeah.
find really fun.
Yeah. Maybe not one for the ages, but for 1977, a lot of the conversation topics it brings up on the cover sound fascinating.
Yes, absolutely. Well, shall we rate this movie?
Sure.
Let's go to our Sasha scale, the squeamish approachability scale for the horror averse. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like, don't go near this movie if you're horror averse, or 10 being super approachable if you're squeamish. This one's tough. I mean, I would give Demon Seed like 8 out of 10 closet sized hard drives. Like, the thing is, trigger warning for like imprisonment and constant like medical and sexual torture,
Yeah.
basically. But it's very distant the way it does it. Like the creepiness is really around the home invasion quality of it, but it's not as like sharp as Funny Games. It's not as
Yeah.
it's not as evilly playful as The Strangers, in
Yeah.
that regard. It is, I don't know. I think you can probably handle it because it is campy in the years that have gone by. Like
But it's
there's a
so
silliness to it.
it's so leery. Like it is the
Yes.
definition of the male gaze, this
It is
movie.
100%. So, but as a horror film, like when you think about like horror conventions that turn people off and make them scared to watch
Sure.
it, this movie super pulls its horror punches. And so I would say 8 out of 10, super approachable. Content warnings in the show notes and all of that. Cecil, what about you as a horror film?
It's a horror film in the canon of horror films. This one's, like I said, like I would love to have read a treatment of this script, or actually, what the original Dean Koontz novel was, and see what got left out in making this film version. And maybe there's a little more empathy for our main character there. But it's, I don't know, I feel like I understand why this is deep cult cuts, not cold cuts, but cult cuts. Because it like you said, it on the surface it brings up a lot of questions, but it focuses more time on too much other bullshit. So
Yeah.
for that reason, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 10 floppy disks.
Well, let's figure out what movie we will watch next. You have a scare die. I have a style die. We'll roll those up, see what movie matches those two things. So, Cecil, on your scare die, if you roll a 1, it's a wild card, whatever scare we want. 2 is a vampire. 3, mythological. 4, sadist. 5, end of the world is our scare. And 6, witchy, something witchy. What scare do you have for us?
That's a 5.
We got right to that end of the world scare.
Man, 5s are rolling hot.
All right, so we're going to match up your end of the world scare with my whatever style I roll. So if I roll a 1, our style is giallo. 2 is urban, something in a city. 3, something from the 1970s. 4, something from the last 5 years. 5 is something rural. And 6 is a prestige film. Something prestige-y. All right, here we go. I got a 6. I rolled prestige. So we rolled our 2 brand new things. We already got them.
Boom, boom.
Boom,
Done,
boom.
done.
End of the world prestige film. So we're going to tell you what movies we had in mind. And then we're going to check in with our Letterboxd because I bet people have some ideas on this as well. All right. I put these on here. But I think we're going to negotiate what prestige is, and we're going to get some good films on here. I put A Quiet Place.
Yeah,
We've got
definitely.
2 major actors.
Yep.
happening in this movie. It was a huge hit. 28 Weeks Later
Oh yeah.
is another big franchise movie. I Am Legend, Will Smith. This is a huge summer blockbustery, end
Yep.
of the world sort of thing.
Yep.
Okay, here's one that I think I'm really interested in. Children of Men.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
This
When
is
you
an
talk about
Oscar-nominated
prestige, end of the
film.
world. Yeah.
This is it. And also Akira. The anime, Japanese animated film, 1980s.
Oh
Is
my
very
God.
end
That
of the
opening,
worldy.
that soundtrack to Kira, like I still get flashbacks every time
Yeah,
I hear that soundtrack.
yeah. So those are the ones I put on there. I don't know
Those sound great.
if you have others that you wanted to add, but we can certainly jump in with
Yeah.
Letterboxd.
Let's look at Letterboxd.
Cronenberg TA says Contagion, Steven Soderbergh.
Yeah.
Ganymede's Cup gives us Cabin in the Woods.
Sure.
And we've got, how do I say that name? Oblate ellipsoid.
Ellipsoid. Obladi bladabla ellipsoid.
Delicatessen they give us.
Yep, that's very post-apocalyptic French. Maybe yeah.
War of the Worlds, the 2005, and World's End, which is like horror comedy.
Yep, very in the same humor, written by the same folks who did Hot Fuzz.
There you go.
Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah. Squin gives us Sunshine. So I think Danny Boyle movie.
Yeah, more computery things. I don't think I've seen this one though.
So. Diamond Dogs gives us Crimes of the Future. So this is the new what's his head? Cronenberg.
Okay.
From last year.
Just like all like eco, like the world.
I think it feels more dystopia than end of the world. I think it's like future dystopia world rather than end of the world.
That's a good distinction to make. That's because like end of the world implies a singular event versus dystopian, something like Delicatessen, great film, but it's more like everything is just fucked up.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting thing because like Akira, I think, is not end of the world so much as dystopian world, right?
Yeah,
it's been a while.
Because now we're just watching, not Suicide Club. Was it a Battle Royale? Is a dystopian future?
Yeah. And so there's a fine line because there's also a thing where end of the world is like the end of the world is at stake in the film. So like Terminator 2.
Yeah,
Brave Crab brings us. That's the Skynet time travel thing in Terminator is about we have to save the world.
Yeah. There's a pre-world and a post-world.
I Am Legend, seconded by Weaponized Toaster. Fifth Hammerer gives us Melancholia.
Oof, that's a great film. Is it a horror film? Question mark. But listen, the lighting is. I love that film. No, that film, like the cinematography is unbelievable.
It's very good.
And it's also like a really amazing look at depression and mental illness.
Yeah.
I have a similar
response to what's his name? Lars von Trier, as I did to the TV show Succession, which is I'm like, you're amazing.
Breaks out in cold sweats.
You're amazing. I never want to talk about this. And
it's a Salinger. I had the same, like when I was 16 years old, I read Catcher in the Rye, and it was my best friend's favorite book. And I was like, respect.
Yeah.
But I'm never reading this book again.
Yeah. Voltant Spider. We had a couple of throws out. Somebody else had
Evangelion.
They also throw out The Last of Us, which is the TV. I'm assuming that's the HBO TV series.
Yeah. Based on the video game. Yep.
Chuck and Nut gives us 12 Monkeys.
Yeah, definitely a prestige film.
Yeah.
Definitely, and it has a like, boom, here is the thing that kills us all.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
That is a good one. What's standing out to you, Cecil?
Oh gosh. Okay. Let's go back to what you put up. Prestige, End of the World. A Quiet Place is great. And I've only seen it once. And it's I think I saw the sequel on an airplane, which is like the worst way to watch a movie that relies upon sound to be scary. 28 weeks later is okay, but I feel like we just saw that in Day of the Dead.
Yes.
Like we're covering the same ground. I Am Legend is pretty good. I think out of the ones you put, A Quiet Place and Children of the Men are like probably the two best out of there. Out of the Letterboxd, I like 12 Monkeys.
Mm-hmm.
I Am Legend is pretty good. It is definitely faithful to the book, sort of, sort of.
Yeah.
It's like vampire zombies and only one man and his dog. So
Yeah.
it's a little sentimental. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? It's like
Yeah.
Will Smith can do anything. What else?
Um.
I'm very curious. Contagion. Is it
Mhm.
the end of the is it an end of the world film? I mean, like this film was
It's an
definitely,
existential threat, right? Like the
well, this movie
pandemic.
was held up during the pandemic. A lot of people went, this is like kind of creepy how
Yeah.
this, forced out. So if we want to have a giant pandemic cry fest, we can watch that.
Uh-huh. These are all really good. I mean, I think the movie I want to see above all of these others is Children of Men, because I watched that in the theater in
Oh
2003.
wow. And you've not seen it since?
I've not seen it since. And I remember loving it. Like, it instantly was like, this might have been the greatest movie I've ever
Yeah.
seen. But also in 2003, I was 28 years old. So,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. And it is, and I think it definitely checks the brief of prestige. Like you've got Michael Caine. It's like it's
Oh,
incredibly well written. It's incredibly well
Julianne
shot.
Moore, Clive
Yeah.
Owen. Yeah.
Like this is A-listers all over the place.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
I feel like Children of Men, Quiet Place, one of those two.
Well, here's the thing. A Quiet Place is a horror film.
Yes.
Big scary aliens
Mm-hmm.
creeping up on people. Versus Children of Men, which is a little more of a drama.
It's a drama with some disturbing elements, some horror-ish
Yeah.
elements in it, but you're right. Quiet Place is
A
it's
horror
more
film.
it more hits the horror film. I think you're right. I
You
really
know?
desperate. Maybe I should rewatch Children of Men, and maybe we can get it back on the show at some point, because we do veer off
Yeah.
horror
Into
adjacent.
thriller but it's thriller drama. Like
But
it's
yeah,
not, it's a tough one. That's a tough one.
I'm still kind of wanting a real good, strong, scary movie.
Yeah. And I mean, A Quiet Place is it knows what it knows, unlike Demon Seed. It knows its strengths, it knows its
Uh-huh.
weaknesses, it knows it's an assured film.
Yes. Well, let's do that. Let's do Quiet Place. I think that's the correct choice for our show. So thank you all for listening. Thank you, Cecil, for talking with me. If you have thoughts on Demon Seed or ideas for movies that would have been good Into the World meets prestige horror film, let us know on Instagram at randomhorror9 or over at Patreon, where we have public discussion threads for each and every episode, and you do not have to be a paying member to participate. Oh, also, there's going to be a bonus episode coming up this Friday, the 13th, of horror shorts, selected horror shorts. We asked our Patreon subscribers horror shorts. We asked our Patreon subscribers to drop their favorite shorts and tell us what horror shorts we should do. We randomly drew a bunch, and we're going to be covering those. So check the show notes of this podcast. There'll be a link to a YouTube playlist on our YouTube account where you can watch those horror shorts for this Friday's bonus episode. And then watch A Quiet Place with us this week and come on back next Tuesday for our new regular episode. Have a restful night with no robot servants putting cream in your coffee or nothing. Boo.